Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Here is a quote before this episode. The opposite of what we know is also true. Life lesson, 30 Days of Thought, episode 1. The best way to F it all up, argue, and combat, all while defending against the haters. Think of a negative comment like a cancer. When it grows in the comment section and grows when engaged with any retort other than love, understanding, and acceptance. Not only does it grow, but it spreads negative meaning others will chime in and feed off of. Remember, people see life through their lens. They are the writer, producer, director, and leading role in their life's movie. You are an extra according to them, and you need to own that. These are the majority, the mice, and they will feed on self-hate because it's what they know. A mouse does not know the hunt. The mouse does not seek out the hunt, and the mouse does not seek out prey nor own their game. They do not know that language. They know gossip, and they scavenge and prey on the lion's kill, on your kill. It was Nietzsche who said, "A lion is not angered over a mouse. His relative power is too great. Defensiveness betrays weakness." A mouse sees what a mouse sees, and a lion sees what a lion sees. This is a truth of life. The opposite of what we know is also true. And once we accept this truth, we can accept people and win them over, eventually. This truth is that we have already won over who matters, ourselves. So the purpose of the 30 Days of Thought is for one listening right now, or a reader who's following along or reading in their own way, to write their thoughts on the page that follows life lesson and to record their thoughts and put it through social media. I am doing just the same, although at one point in my life I authored that specific excerpt, past tense, because at this point, years ago, I am pursuing in these episodes the reading to think, the writing to develop, writing my thoughts down, and the speaking to let go, the philosophy or methodology proposed in 30 Days of Thought for you, the reader, the writer, the speaker, the engager. And it's interesting because all these years later, doing this once again, I feel more and more distant from the me, the I who once wrote this. Initial thoughts. I've got three main points I'd like to I'd like to cover and I'm going to share in this thought of life lesson, the thought of the thought. Firstly, paradox, and I think a great foreshadow for the book, which, just like life, is riddled in contradiction with the purpose of you, the reader, and me, the reader, and the writer, and the speaker, to unravel any knots that we believe we come across, to share. So what better way to start the book, Life Lessons, than with life lessons? So I'm fairly excited that that's how the book ended up starting out all back then. So my first thought is interesting how, well, okay. So the ending is where I want to start, because if we start with the first sentence, best way to F it all up, argue and combat, all while defending against the haters. Think of a negative comment like a cancer. When it grows in the comment section and grows when engaged with any retort other than love, understanding, and acceptance. My first point I'd like to point out is that I think the victim, one in a state of victimhood, lacking resources, lacking resourcefulness, feeling lack, the first move naturally is to get away from conflict, to move away from conflict, whether that's interpersonal conflict, the people in my life, let me get away from them, the negative, get towards the positive. That there's an impulse to do that. I mean, how else will one crawl out of their purgatory? And a point I want to make in that is that the medium changes when I'm no longer in a state of victimhood, lacking resources, lacking resourcefulness, or the feeling of resourcefulness, the belief of resourcefulness, the whether true or not, the actual lack of resources. The medium changes when I go from victim, one who lacks resources, resourcefulness, relationships, and I've gained resources, relationships, resources. There's an interesting victim bully dichotomy in the life lesson that I think is a metaphor for our lives because we can simultaneously be a victim and a bully and a victim. Once I gain resources, gain relationships, gain responsibility, the ability to respond to conflicts as they arise. People are relying on me. When I'm the leader of the followers and not just a follower amongst followers with or without leadership, the medium changes and therefore the response to conflict, the response to the quote unquote haters changes. It may be valuable to me to cut out negative people I perceive as negative, whether they are or not is another conversation I'm going to do my best to unpack today. To cut out or to distance from or to get away from and move towards something I consider positive, to gain resources, to gain relationships, to gain a degree of responsibility, the ability to respond and move forward. Once I gain power, resources, relationships, responsibility, this idea of the hater, I believe, or this idea of other people's word encroaching on me can actually create a destructiveness if I'm in a position of power. The victim that becomes the victor becomes the oppressor or the bully when unable to listen to the quote unquote haters. That's where my second point comes in that I think that the hater, the idea of the hater has I wrote down does not exist out beyond language. Now, it's a half truth because someone who, you know, let's say can have hatred for you, for me. They have the right to do it. They have the capacity to do it. I'm more interested in my acute awareness of is it me or is it them? And if it's them, how much of me? Because where does my responsibility lie? Where, if I have resources, I have relationships, I have responsibility, I'm in a position of control and power in my life, the degree by which I can combat hatred is increased. If I'm unable to combat hatred, then I may be more negative than I think I am. And that's an important piece here. I may be more negative than I think I am. I'm going to reread this life lesson. Best way to F it all up, argue and combat all while defending against the haters. Argue and combat. I definitely, how I relate to those that I perceive as hateful, as negative, as coming, affronting me will reveal my ability to burden conflict and filter negativity. That's a point I want to make. When it grows in the comment section and grows when engaged with, any retort other than love, understanding, and acceptance. Well, argue understanding and acceptance coming before love. Love. What is love? It's a healing. It's a forgiving. It's an interaction of compassion, reason, and uplifting. I drew this actually. I'm not going to show you the drawing, but this life lesson is there's a there's a bunch of contradiction in it because in one sense making an argument of love and understanding while using language of antithetical to love and understanding, language of combat, language of isolation or exclusion, let's say. For example, while defending against the haters, Kierkegaard, once you label me, you negate me. Think of a negative comment like a cancer when it grows in the comment section and grows when engaged with any retort other than love, understanding, and acceptance. And so the question becomes, well, what do I do with that comment? The victim, a person in a state of lacking resources, lacking um, the ability to respond, lacking relationships, lacking resourcefulness, is gonna, it will be harder for them to respond with compassion, in theory, with empathy, with, because, so somewhere between the victim and the victor is the same. Sign up for your crucifixion. Our virtue will be revealed in how we handle conflict, how we engage with conflict, how we engage with criticism and things that come against us. And I want to add that it depends where we fall in life. The victim may run, may need to get a new friend group. The person lacking those things. Once you have that power, that control, those resources, those responsibilities, those relationships, those reasons, now we must listen to the quote unquote haters, to the critics, to the criticisms. Because if not, this is what we hate in governments that don't listen to its people. Are you a government that's not listening to its people? Are you an owner of a business who's not listening to their employees, who's not listening to their customers, who knows it all, who's been there and once was powerless and felt as though you lacked resources and relationships and an ability to have a voice, you lacked a voice, and now you have it. Are you listening? Have you lost your ears along the way? Not only does it grow, but it spreads negative meaning others will chime in and feed off of. Remember, when people see life through their lens, they are the writer, producer, director, and leading role in their life's movie. You are an extra according to them, and you need to own that. These are the majority, the mice. So when I'm going into these ideas, the majority, the mice, all of that distances myself, us, the reader, from others. That talk is isolating and is energy conserving, and it's paradoxical because it's not loving and it's not understanding and accepting. It infers victim, it infers powerlessness, and I think that's an important thing to articulate here. Those are not, that is not inclusive language, that is exclusive language. And now I may need exclusive language to get myself together, to feel safe, to be safe, to move out of being a victim, lacking resources, lacking resourcefulness, lacking the ability to respond to conflicts in my external conflicts, interpersonal conflicts, right? External, like things going wrong, things out of my control, interpersonal conflicts, people communicating with me in a way I can or cannot handle. My challenge to you to remind myself as we climb the hierarchy of life and we have more and more resources and more responsibilities, we're accountable by the virtue that we could. We're accountable to our character or the potential of our character to heal the culture, to listen, to lean in, not to necessarily live out the value system that got us power. That could have been exclusionary. That could have been not listening to people that we deemed as negative. Now we may have to be called to listen to those exact same people or to listen to people we consider negative, because if we don't, how will we know if we're negative or not? How will we heal the sick and the wounded? How will we lead the unled? How will we lead the unled? And so the dynamic changes from victim to victor, and somewhere between victim and victor is saint. And Satan, it's like the person in a position of power has just as much to lose as someone that has no power to be saintly, because they have to be able to give up all the things that they attach themselves to, climbing climbing the world essentially. That we have to be willing to jump. We climbed hundreds of, thousands of feet in the air for years and years and years. We have to be willing to jump back to the ground floor to not betray our spirit. And the person at the bottom has to be willing to lose their life, to lose, go negative, uh, in order not to compromise their character. That's that perfection. Somewhere between the victim and the victor is the saint, and I think that is the expression of love, the interaction of people. So I'm gonna keep reading. A mouse does not know the hunt. The mouse. This is the exclusionary language. The mouse does not seek out the hunt, and the mouse does not seek out prey nor own their game. They do not know that language. They gossip, they scavenge and prey on lions kill. It wasn't Nietzsche that said it, was Peter um, Hersted that was on Nietzsche. Actually, I should, maybe we'll update that someday. But Peter, I think Husted or Hersted, some kind of Danish philosopher on Nietzsche, said, a lion is not angered over a mouse. His relative power is too great. Defensiveness betrays weakness. I took me a long time. I was to model, to think about that. Think about that. Lion is not angered over a mouse. His relative power is too great. Defensiveness betrays weakness. A mouse sees what a mouse sees, and a lion sees what a lion sees. This is a truth of life. The opposite of what we know is also true. That can come before, empathy. There's a subjectivity to someone's view, and there's an objectivity. And somewhere in the relationship of me and my counterpart in both of our subjective experiences will bring us closer to the objective. That's at least, if anything, a metaphor that may or may not be, at least in one subtle sense. If I could work through if I could work with someone I'm in a disagreement with, whether that's someone in the comment section or someone that a dispute at work, if I can work with them and not against them, we can likely get to the problem, more likely get to the problem that both facing, that we're both facing, as opposed to just growing apart or growing distance from between both of us, never getting to the problem. Is like we both lose instead of one of them, I win, you lose, well, or we win and neither of us lose. Which would we prefer? Well, the latter would. I'd have to. Who do I have to be able to, for even my enemy to win? Now, so this is a truth of life. The opposite of what we know is also true. And once we accept this truth, we can accept people and win them over eventually. Sometimes we can't, but if we argue that we can't, we don't know. We don't know. The question becomes, where in my life am I going to stop trying? And if it's trying to win someone over, it could be a metaphor for love. Like, when am I in my life going to stop loving? When going to stop loving? Hopefully not, but I may not be strong. I may not be courageous enough in this life to not stop loving. This truth is that we have already won over who matters, ourselves. Yeah. Well, and it's not just ourselves, it's everyone that we ever come across. So the life lesson, my initial thoughts are those main points. The victim and the bully, be aware of where I have to be aware of where I am at. And where I'm at will be revealed in who I'm speaking with. I may be the victor in a relation, a relatingness between another that's the victim, and there's a call to responsibility for my ability to respond to bring this person up. And I may be in a state where I feel as though I'm the victim. Am I going to perpetuate that victimhood and run, or am I going to fight and represent my character and fight and maybe lose, but do the best I can to stay in that conflict? Maybe that'll get me what I seek even faster. So being aware of the victim and the bully dichotomy and the importance of not losing our ability to listen or gain our ability to listen once we're as we learn how to speak. I mean, I could say that even the process of developing through the 30 days of thought, read, write, speak, will came before read, write, listen, speak. I had yet to really grasp how little I listened in my own journey going through 30 days of thought. The other point was haters don't exist outside of language, which, of course, is a partial truth because one could, of course, hate, and there are those that do. The question becomes, what what can that usage of language do to me? So for if I say, "Oh, they're a hater," get rid of them or delete that, I may they may not have had to stay that way. Two negatives don't make a positive. So, my positivity may be able to make empower or enlighten or the candles. There's no candle, but there's a wick. Am I the light? There's a degree of irony that I don't want to perpetuate. Um, if I spend my life saying everybody's negative, or how negative am I actually? I'm not able to actually relate with people in a way that changes my mind about them because their behavior changes as a result of my mind about them and how I adapt and relate to them. An example of this would be just having a conversation in the comment section on one of the social media platforms in a way that's open and curious and working through my own emotions with a stranger that I don't owe anything to when I could just very, very easily erase them out of my existence. It's so easy to erase them out of my existence. Did I grow from that? There's no growth from that. The awareness arguably is going to come from those that have no skin in my game. The uh, the stranger is more honest than the friend. At some level, the stranger is more honest than the friend. The friend doesn't say unless they're asked, and if they say, I better be able to be a friend back to them by being able to hear what they say and love them relative to their critique of me. So the hater idea, um, what's the utility of my labeling of perceived hatred? What's the utility? What does it have to do with me? Am I more hateful than I think I am because I spend so much time hating the haters? And that's something that I'm going to continue to think about. Hopefully I can lead in an exemplary way by not deleting and blocking and avoiding conversations of those that criticize, especially as I gain more resources, more relationships, more responsibility, the ability to respond. When you're in power, you have influence, you have authority, you have people looking at you for answers. There's a degree proportionate of need to be able to handle the consequence of that power. Meaning there's a different army of people that say you stink, you're terrible. This is why. I have to be able. I will be a better leader for the followers that I do have by being open to the enemies that I also do have. That's the idea. Life. I'm going to do all these 30 days of thought. So I think this is all just life lesson. I think it's a great. I'm excited. It's a good foreshadow for the book because there's contradictions inherent right in this life lesson, and I'm going to do my best to unpack the things that I can see today that I may or may not have been able to see in the past, and share with you the thoughts of 30 Days of Thought. I can share that I've been putting this off for years in this format, the Culture Matters podcast, and I'm excited to share my thoughts of the thoughts that were once my thoughts that are and aren't my thoughts as I've evolved and devolved and digressed in some ways because I don't think I've evolved in every way. I don't want to think that I've evolved in every way just because I haven't put a lot of thought into it. Um, there was one more point about the irony of negativity. I think I clarified that, or at least I attempted to start that conversation. And so this is 30 Days of Thought. The first 30 Days of Thought was written by me, your host, Jay Doran. Your 30 Days of Thought will be written by you. And how you use 30 Days of Thought as a tool for you is you read an excerpt, so a page or two or three. They don't really go beyond three. You read one, you write your thoughts in the book, and then you film your thoughts and put it on social media, put it on your podcast, your thoughts of the thoughts. Mention me or mention me not. It's not, this is becomes your book of thoughts. And that's the purpose of 30 Days of Thought is your 30 days of thought. And as you can see, I can go back and do 30 days of my thought and argue or debate or reconcile or think through my old thoughts, which helps me think anew. And it's a content creation and curation of the individual tool so that at least if we're going to commoditize ourselves through these cameras for each other, maybe we grow anew and we're not just convincing ourselves of things that we have to believe to keep ourselves feeling whole when we're not, which I think is a consequence of, well, not just life, but yeah, life and social mediums enabling us to do so. So the idea of 30 Days of Thought is, man, hopefully you gain more power in your life, influence, authority, recognition, and have the ability to respond. You're reading to think, you're writing to develop, you're listening to hear what is unsaid, which was not articulated in 30 Days of Thought at all, because I wasn't there yet. But through the podcast, it is. I'm interviewing people to listen to hear what is unsaid and speak to let go. Film your videos, put them out there. And all right, I'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.